Hello there, Coaster crew, and welcome back to the channel. And this is my first long-form video in, I believe, a month. But hey, let's get back to it. So, as we're all aware, I live in Surrey, which means my home park is Chessington World of Adventures. So I've grown up at this park. It's one of my favourite theme parks that I've personally been to. Fort Park is up there because it's like half an hour away from Chessington, but Chessington's always been like that park that I can always go to. That's always kind of been something that's been quite close to my heart because I've loved roller coasters all my life. So Chessington's always very easy, very accessible whenever I need to just, I want to have a day out. So what we're going to do today, we're going to take a deep dive through the history of this amazing, extraordinary park. It was quite unique in a way, because once upon a time, there was no rides, there was no water rides, there was no coasters. Chessington was simply a zoo. So let's cast our minds back all the way to 1931.
Chessington Zoo. Chessington Zoo. Chessington Zoo. There's a fun fair and a circus at Chessington Zoo, open every day.
In 1931, Chessington was brought to life by the one and only Reginald Goddard, who we will get to know very well throughout this video, the man who created Chessington Zoo. Now at the time, it was one of the first private zoos in the whole of the UK, where people could come and they could expect to see exotic animals like lions, birds, sea life, and they were all kept in what was known as the Burnt Stub Mansion, which this generation is now known as Room on the Broom, but rest in peace, was once known as Hocus Pocus Hall. Now, by some divine miracle, through the Second World War, the Burnt Stub Mansion remained untouched, leaving it still to remain today. Now, after seeing his creation flourish for just about a decade, Reginald unfortunately passed away on Christmas Day 1946, aged 56. But now, let's head over to the 1970s, where things get quite interesting for Chessington. Now see, through the 70s and the early 80s, theme park competition was rising, and being only a zoo and a circus at the time, Chessington could not compete. And so, they made the drastic decision to sign with the Two Swords Group in the 80s. For those who don't know, the Two Swords Group is the same group behind most of your favourite theme parks, including Alton Towers at one point. See, the Two Swords Group, they invested heavily in Chessington, believing that it could be something better than the competing theme parks. And so, in 1987, Chessington World of Adventures officially opened its gates. Now that the park was officially open, Chessington decided to do something different to other theme parks. They decided to have themed areas which they would split off and were known as the following things: Calamity Canyon, Market Square, and Circus World. Now see, this technique worked very well for Chessington as it became one of a kind at the time. It was an adventure park. More importantly, it was a very well themed family park, which was the idea from the beginning. Now, let's head over to the 90s, where Chessington gets a very much needed upgrade. Now see, 1990 was the beginning of Chessington's uprise. This was a pivotal point in Chessington's history as they really wanted to separate themselves from other parks, meaning they needed one thing and one thing only: a thrill ride. Something of which people in the UK had never seen before, and so they brought in the Vampire in 1990. The ride was something new and exciting, something people could sink their teeth into. No pun intended. Of course, designed by Aerodynamics, who at the time had designed the Big Bad Wolf over in America, which was, again, another hanging coaster, but this, the Vampire, was the very first hanging coaster of its kind. Not only in theme parks in the UK, but in the UK as a whole. Now see, the mid-90s brought what many Chessington fans call Chessington's Golden Era, bringing in a lot of new rides such as, the previously named Vampire, Ramesses Revenge, and many more. Some have even gone as far to say that Chessington, at this time, was the precursor to Fort Park now, as you could kind of sense that they were attempting to move away from the family theming, but stick with it and also add more thrill rides to make it more accessible to everyone, including teens, young adults. They were trying to expand their age territory. See, this big boom period in the mid-90s to the 2000s is what led Chessington to have such success. They weren't exactly like the other parks. They weren't a Fort Park, they weren't an Alton Towers, but they were the exact mixture of the two, to where it was a good family park, but at the same time you had that thrill. And that, my dear friends, is what allowed them to compete for so long. Now, in the early 2000s, they went from this massive boom period to attempting to move back to a more family-orientated park. A prime example of this, the very well-known Samurai, was actually once at Chessington, but they made the brave decision to move it over to Fort Park as to make the park more family-orientated. Then, in 2004, Chessington made one of the best decisions they could have possibly made. They added one of the UK's first ever spinning coasters, Dragon's Fury, from Mora. Now see, at this time, they had also added Beano Land, which then went on to become Wild Asia, but we'll get onto that in a bit. Beano Land was centered around the town of Beano Land. I don't remember what it's called exactly, because I never really read many of the comics. But from what I know, it was centered around Dennis the Menace. There we go. And one more groundbreaking thing that was introduced in the 2000s. Chessington introduced its first on-site hotel in 2008. Now, let's move on to the 2010s, when things started to get a tad bit rocky for Chessington. The reason I call this era a bit rocky is due to the fact that most of the original aura from the park had disappeared. Like, one of the only things the park had going for it is that it was a theme park centered around a zoo. For example, in 2018 saw the transformation from Dragon Falls into Tiger Rock, which many fans at the time were absolutely furious about, and it showed. Chessington had in a sense lost its identity. It was attempting to mingle in today's parks when in reality not many people thought it could, with Fort Park and Alton Towers literally going head to head. And then you have Chessington in that middle of that. They were attempting to be, especially in the 2000s, they were attempting to be a hybrid of these two parks, when in reality they were stuck at a crossroads. They could have gone very family orientated, or they could have gone for more of a Fort Park feel, and they never capitalized on it. And let's move over to the 2020s, where most of the decline has been happening for the park. In 2021, Croc Drop was added. Need I say more? The drop ride at the time had received many mixed reactions from fans. Some love it, some hate it. Some just don't really have an opinion on it. However, in 2023, Chessington made headlines when they launched their first ever launch wing coaster, Mandrill Mayhem, in tie-in with the Jumanji movie. And I swear to God, before I hear anything in the comments,
but Swarm exists.
Swarm is not a shuttle coaster, it's simply a winged coaster. And now we reach today, 2025. The park is going through a lot of changes, having 2 new areas added. One being the new Paw Patrol land that is replacing Wild Asia, and I hate that I'm saying that, but it's fact. I like the fact that they're doing brand deals, but at the same time it's really taken away from what we all felt as children. I don't know how to describe it. It makes me feel so sad, because all of the mostly all of the elements of the 2000s Chessington have disappeared. We don't even have Ramesses anymore. Ramesses was such a good ride, and they got rid of it. But thank you all for joining me today. This may or may not have been a short video. I was just trying to push out some long form content. I do, however, have a vlog coming tomorrow or Friday, whenever you're watching this. So please do feel free to subscribe, like, comment, get some interaction going. I will see you all for 31 coasters in 31 days, hopefully late today. I'll see you for a vlog tomorrow. Au revoir.